All right, buckle up because we're diving into this whole Robotaxi thing, the one Tesla's been teasing. Their latest presentation really got people talking. All these futuristic designs and big promises. We're going to break it all down, see what actually holds water, what it means for the future of getting around, and how it might hit your own driveway, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Yeah, it's way bigger than just some new cars on the market. Tesla's basically talking about flipping the script on how we even think about transportation.
Totally. And to unpack this, we've got some juicy source material, not just Tesla's own presentation, but also some sharp analysis and takes from industry folks. What we really want to know is Tesla's robotaxi dream this amazing traffic-vanquishing utopia? Or are we looking at a hype machine about to run out of gas?
It's important to remember Tesla's got a bit of a, shall we say, track record with timelines. Remember a Cybertruck? Supposed to be cruising by now.
Oh yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago.
Exactly. So, a little skepticism is healthy, right?
Hmm.
Especially with future tech.
Absolutely. So let's keep our heads on straight and meet the stars of the show, these robotaxis themselves. Tesla showed off two new vehicles. First, there's the Cybercab, maybe hitting the streets by 2026, though knowing Tesla, that date could easily shift.
Yeah, 2026. That's pretty ambitious considering what we're talking about here.
Right. Then there's the Robobin, or as Elon accidentally called it, the Robovan.
Hmm.
Gotta say, Robom just sounds better, don't you think? Like something out of a sci-fi comic?
It's definitely friendlier, especially if they're aiming for the public transit crowd.
Makes you wonder, right? Like, is that part of the plan? But names aside, both of these vehicles have some seriously out there features that popped in the reports. Starting with the Cybercab. 2 seats. That's it, 2. Is Tesla saying solo riding is the future?
It's a head scratcher, I'll give you that. Seems like they're betting most trips are 1 or 2 people, which statistically might be right. But what about families, groups? Trying to hail a Cybercab for a night out with friends? Good luck.
Right. And even if they squeeze in more seats later, the reports say backseat space is basically non-existent. I'm imagining crawling through the sunroof just to get back there. Not exactly luxurious, is it?
It definitely raises accessibility questions, that's for sure. People with disabilities, mobility issues. It doesn't seem like Tesla's addressed that part yet.
Good point. Okay, so maybe the Cybercab is a little cramped, right?
Yeah.
But what about its big brother, the Robobin? Supposed to be Tesla's answer to public transit. Except it's low, like really low. Lower than some sports cars? How's that going to work in the real world?
Yeah.
Potholes, speed bumps, all that.
Yeah, it's a valid concern, especially for something meant for, navigating actual city streets. The source material mentioned adjustable suspension, but who knows how effective that'll be.
Right? If this thing can't even handle a speed bump, it's not revolutionizing anything. And then there's the charging situation. Both vehicles are all in on inductive charging, like wireless charging for your phone, but, supersized.
The tech itself isn't new, but scaling it up for a whole fleet of robotaxis, that's a whole different ballgame.
Totally. Are we talking giant charging pads everywhere?
Yeah.
Every parking spot, street corner. And who's footing the bill? Tesla. Cities. It feels a little bit like novelty over practicality.
It's the billion-dollar question, right? And one Tesla hasn't really answered.
Yeah, it's all very, if you build it, they will come. But will they? And speaking of things Tesla hasn't really cleared up, let's talk about the money side of this whole robotaxi thing. They're making some big claims about how affordable these rides will be. 20 cents a mile for the Cybercab. That's what, less than half the price of an Uber or Lyft right now?
Yeah, at first glance, it sounds amazing, especially if you're on a budget or, rely on ride sharing a lot. But the big question is, can they actually keep that price? Is it sustainable?
That's what gets me. Are they factoring in everything? Not just the cars, but maintenance, the charging stuff we talked about, insurance, software, all of it.
Exactly. And what about the drivers? Or, well, the lack of drivers. Replacing humans with AI sounds good on paper, cost-wise, but it brings up a whole other can of worms, ethically and economically.
It's like, on one hand, this could make transportation cheaper and easier for a ton of people. But on the other hand, are we putting a bunch of people out of work?
It's the classic dilemma, right? Tech moves forward, but society has to keep up. We need to figure out how to make this robotaxi thing, if it happens, fair for everyone.
It's a big question, and I wonder if, in all the excitement about the tech and the low prices, Tesla's missing that part.
It's easy to get caught up in the wow factor, for sure. But this isn't just about shiny new gadgets and cheap rides. It's about people's lives, their jobs.
Totally. And speaking of big changes, let's talk about Tesla saying this will actually reduce traffic. Their argument is, if everyone's sharing rides, fewer cars on the road, right? but something about that just feels off.
Yeah, a lot of transportation experts are skeptical about that. In fact, some studies suggest the opposite might happen. If you've got robotaxis constantly driving around empty, waiting for fares, that's more traffic, not less.
Right. So my car is off the road, but now there's an empty robotaxi circling the block because it just dropped someone off.
Yeah.
And what about parking? Tesla's saying we won't need parking lots anymore. Robotaxis drop you off, then go park themselves somewhere else. Poof.
It's a nice image, right? All those parking lots turned into parks and green spaces.
Nice, but realistic. Even if these robotaxis don't need to park right at your doorstep,
Yeah.
they still need to go somewhere.
Exactly. They can't just disappear. Plus, don't forget about charging. We might actually need even more space dedicated to charging if this takes off.
It's like they skipped a few chapters in City Planning 101.
Yeah.
So we've got these futuristic cars that may or may not make sense practically. Pricing that seems iffy at best. And traffic, well, that might get worse before it gets better.
It's a mixed bag, that's for sure. And it shows how important it is to look past the hype and ask the tough questions. Because when we're talking about the future of transportation, it's about way more than just technology. It's about people, cities, and how we want to live in the future.
It really makes you think. But even if Tesla figures all this out, the logistics, the money, all that, are people even ready for robotaxis to take over? I mean, are we really going to be okay getting into a car where there's no driver?
That's the real question, isn't it? We talk so much about the tech, but humans, we're emotional creatures.
It's easy to forget that part.
Yeah.
Like, I get the tech specs, but just picturing myself in a car, letting a computer drive, it still feels weird. Like, what happens if something goes wrong? Who's going to slam on the brakes?
It's a natural reaction. We're used to being in control, right? Behind the wheel. Letting go of that, even to some super smart AI, it's unnerving. There's a sense of, I don't know, security in knowing you can react. Even if, statistically, we humans, we make way more mistakes than machines.
It's like, I know flying's supposed to be safer than driving, but I still grip the armrest during takeoff.
Exactly. Trust, you got to earn it. And when it's about something as important as our safety, on the road especially, it's going to take time.
So how do we get there? Do we just need to, like, see robotaxis around more often, get used to them?
That's part of it, for sure. Exposure helps. The more we see these things running smoothly, in the real world, not just test tracks, the more comfortable we'll get. Hearing good things from people we know, that'll help too.
It's like, once your buddy tells you about their awesome robotaxi ride, you might actually consider trying it.
Exactly. But it's not just about whether you or I want to ride in one, right? We have to think bigger. What happens to jobs, to whole industries?
That's a big one. We touched on it earlier, but it's worth repeating. If robotaxis are everywhere, what about the drivers? Taxi drivers, truckers, delivery folks, everyone who makes a living from driving.
It's a huge issue, and there's no easy tech fix. We're talking retraining, creating new jobs that maybe don't exist yet. Maybe even something like universal basic income comes into play. It's a whole other conversation.
It makes you realize this robotaxi thing, if it happens, it changes everything. Not just swapping out cars for fancier ones, but our relationship with work, how cities are designed, the whole shebang.
And it's not just about personal cars either, right? Think about the Robobin. If Tesla's vision pans out, this could be the future of public transit.
Like a, I don't know, supercharged bus that comes when you call it. You mentioned earlier Tesla's comparing the cost to public transit. But what if it's not even about cost? What if it's about convenience? Getting where you need to go when you need to go.
That's a huge part of it, for sure. Imagine no more waiting at the bus stop, hoping it's on time. You call a Robobin, it picks you up, maybe grabs a few other folks going in the same direction, and boom, you're there.
Like carpooling, but like high-tech and personalized.
Exactly. It could totally change how we think about public transportation. But, of course, this is all depending on Tesla actually doing it.
Which, as we've been saying, is a big if.
It is. But that's what these deep dives are for, right? We look at what's possible, good and bad, and we try to make sense of it all.
And I've got to say, after going deep on robotaxis today, I've got more questions now than when we started. But maybe that's a good thing. Shows it's a conversation worth having. So here's a thought to leave you with. If Tesla's right, if this is the future, what kind of world does that create? And what role do we want tech to play in shaping our cities, our lives? Think about it. And we'll be back with another deep dive into the tech that's shaping our future.